So now I'm not talking to anybody before I know it started. That's the new plan, I think. Now I'm not talking to anybody before I know for a fact that it started. Peter, yours is a name that I am not used to seeing here. So let me say hello and welcome. There's Nate, I believe, and a bunch of other people. There's Bill, there's Roger, Chuck, Andrew, Webb. Phone's ringing, Webb. I'm just guessing. It's just a guess. There's Eugene. There's Donna. Hi, everybody. Right. I'm not going to say it, Bill. I'm not going to say it. I might say it. Let me do a couple other things really fast. Yeah. Put that on Do Not Disturb so that nobody disturbs us because you and me, we got stuff to talk about. That's how I should actually promo every show, right? Just promo every show. We need to talk. And then nobody will come because those are the worst words ever. We need to talk. Can you tell me what about? No, let's just talk later. I quit. Right. Okay. Here we go. Why don't we do a show? That's what I'm supposed to say. Why don't we do a show? That, and I don't know how it's going to go. These are the two things I generally speaking say. I went very casual today. I am now regretting that decision. Stand by. Apple TV Plus and the European Pickle. It is Thursday, the 10th of December, 2020, and this is macOS Can Live. Good afternoon, everyone, unless it's night where you are, in case good evening, or, good morning. Hey, let's just cover all the bases. Hi, I'm Ken Ray, welcoming you into this live thing that we do at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, Monday through Friday. It is called macOS Can Live, an offshoot, theoretically, of macOS Ken, which is the daily morning Apple News show that I do. I say it's an offshoot theoretically because originally it was going to be discussion of things that we have talked about on macOS Ken. Lately, discussion here actually precedes what's going to be on macOS Ken, because once I know something's out there, I just can't wait. Second half of today's show, it's time for me to either put up or shut up on contact tracing. It turns out I'm much less happy about that than I thought I would be. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. First, though, yesterday on this show, I said, let's talk about the European requirement that looks like it's going to start at the first of the year, that streaming video services have to have 30% of their content sourced in Europe. They have to be European works. I said, let's talk about that yesterday. And I said, no, let's talk about that tomorrow, which is now today. So let's talk about that. Mostly because I said yesterday that we would. This actually was on macOS Ken yesterday. There was a Mac Rumors piece that said that the law may require 30% of Apple TV Plus in the EU to be European work. Now, it's not just Apple TV Plus. It is also Disney Plus. It is also Amazon Prime Video. Basically, if you can name a video streaming service that's not from Europe, which you probably can because it's almost all of them. If you can name a video streaming service that's not from Europe, if they want to play in the EU, 30% of their content has to be European work. The Mac Rumors piece says these clauses of the general scheme of the Online Safety and Media Regulation Bill come in response to the overwhelming amount of US-centric content on video streaming services. The law, if ratified, will require all streaming services to feature at least 30% content that may be classified as European work. A new Irish Media Commission would oversee the administration of the law for the entire EU and determine if streamers are meeting their obligations. Okay, that makes it sound relatively... it doesn't make it sound easy because they still have to source 30% of their content from Europe. But at least it makes it sound like, oh, well, it's relatively simple. There's one body that's going to govern the whole thing. And so Apple and Netflix and Amazon would deal, with this one body in Ireland. And then they would deal with everybody else, which is, of course, completely untrue. I read a piece in Variety that we'll get to in a moment. First, if ratified, The piece says the law will require all streaming services. I already did that part. And there's a guy named Adrian Weckler, who is a tech editor at The Independent out of Ireland. He was looking at who is actually well positioned right now if this goes into effect, which it sounds like it's a foregone conclusion. And the answer is nobody. Netflix is closest, according to Mr. Weckler, excuse me. He says these rules would also apply to Netflix, which probably does have close to 30% European content on the platform there, according to him. Disney Plus also would have to be covered by this, and Disney is nowhere near that. But of course, neither is Apple. I guess you could argue that Apple is closer than Disney in that Apple has one show, that one show being the comedy Trying, which I don't remember if I said here yesterday or on Mac OS Ken. I had not watched. I've now watched one episode. It's fine. I may watch the rest of it. I don't know. What's the best way to put it? I can see how it would speak to some audiences. It doesn't necessarily speak to me. The things that they're talking about are not necessarily things that have spoken to me since, for quite a while. So they got that going for them. It's kind of funny to me that that counts as European work, even though, as Nate pointed out to me on Twitter earlier, the UK is in the EU for what, 21 more days? I don't know. How many days are left in the year? So the first of the year, they're no longer in the EU. So here's the problem that I had. A couple of times it says that the heart of this whole thing is the fact that so much of the content is US centric. And I wanted to dig a bit deeper because I wanted to know what that was about. Is it about national identity or regional identity or not wanting to have the identity of your people sort of awash in denim and, country music or whatever is on Apple TV at the time? Is it about wanting to keep a cultural identity or is it about money? And the answer is yes. The money, though, goes back into the cultural identity, at least in a lot of the things that we're seeing set up. I went to Variety hoping to find like an easy way to understand what's happening. And that failed me because there's nothing easy about the whole thing. It's like I said, the Mac Rumors piece says they're dealing with this board in Ireland, and that makes it sound like it's great, but everybody else, wants what they want as well. All right. So here's from Variety. Under the directive, streamers must offer a 30% quota of European content to European subscribers starting in 2021, which again is in about 22 days. On top of that, EU countries can introduce nationally tailored legislation to make streamers directly reinvest a percentage of their revenues within each European territory where they operate. Currently, parliaments in key countries across Europe, notably France, Italy, and Germany, are scrambling to meet the January 2021 deadline. So if they want to play in Europe, they have to follow the EU rules, but then each individual country can also, tack on their own rules or make their own rules for dealing with the streaming services in their regions. France is asking that between 20 and 25% of a streamer's local revenues from subscriptions be invested in European production and 85% spent on French language content, the bulk of which must be commissioned to independent French producers who'd be able to get some upside. So if you want to be in France, you have to take between 20 and 25% of the money you make in France, and then you have to go out and hire people. Why not just take the tax and put it to your national film board? I'm kind of curious why France isn't doing that themselves, unless their point is also to get exposure for people. If Apple has to go out and hire the French director and French writers and French actors and the French film crew and all that stuff, they're going to want to show it, right? And that raises the profile of French media producers on a global scale, assuming the stuff plays globally. But we'll get to that. See, that actually sounds like a pretty good deal for those guys, right? Here's the problem, though. In Italy, what they want is an investment of 20% of the revenue with a lower rate permitted if the rules of engagement are regulated. A key point on the table is that to tap into Italy's generous tax rebates, that's another question, should a company worth billions and billions of dollars like Apple or billions of dollars like Netflix be able to come in and take advantage of tax subsidies for filming there when they're being required to do that anyway, and when they've already got more money than Croesus. Anyway, Italy is wondering whether Apple should get, some of the tax money that goes into local production. Another clause, though, and this one's kind of weird to me, is that streaming video on demand rights must revert back to Italian producers after no more than 5 years, and they're allowed to sell off pay and linear TV rights after only 1 year. So I'm an Italian director. I mean, this is a pretty sweet deal for me. Apple comes in, they finance what I'm doing, I get the rights to that back, and I can go off and sell it to somebody else. So Apple has no guarantee that it has the content after 5 years. It has no guarantee that it has exclusivity after 1 year. That's a pretty sweet deal for the producer, for the director. And I'm not against, their rights to do that. I absolutely believe that creators should have more control over their stuff going forward. They should be able to share in the bounty. What's difficult to figure out is what's the bounty exactly. I assume Apple knows how everything I'm watching is doing on Apple TV Plus or everything that's produced. They have a rough idea of how many times Greyhound has been viewed versus Trying versus I can't think of their other movies. Love on the Rocks, not Love on the Rocks, On the Rocks. Love on the Rocks is a Neil Diamond song, I think. There's no clarity as far as like what does what generates what amount of revenue. There's also no guarantee that the thing that they think is going to generate the revenue will. Ted Lasso has been a runaway hit for Apple TV Plus. I don't think they would have made any deal that they made assuming that Ted Lasso was going to be a runaway hit, nor do I think that they're going to be able to go back and say, right, when we divide up this pie, it turns out, X percentage was for Ted Lasso versus the other stuff. The other thing is they're only charging $5 a month. There's so much about this stuff that's hairy. And if I were Apple, I'd be kind of annoyed because if you say to me, you have to go to a tax board and pay, I'll be like, fine, I'll go to the tax board and pay. If you say to me, you have to go to the tax board and pay, and then go to that one and that one and that one and that one and that one, well, at that point, what do I want to do? I've been trying to figure out what some of streaming providers' options would be. Not like I know. It's just like the immediate things that I think of are like, okay, what could they possibly do? First of all, they could restrict catalogs regionally. So if they're required to have 30% of their stuff come from a region, right? Is it easier to look at what you've got, multiply that times zero point 0.3 and add that much more? Or I guess you'd have to add a little bit more. See, math is also not my strong suit, but here's what I'm saying. Do they now have to have 30% European content that goes out to the world, or do they just say, right, we're going to lop off Helpsters, we're going to lop off Ghostwriter, we're going to lop off a bunch of the stuff that we have in Europe so that we can bring it back down. When you make the whole thing smaller, you make the European portion bigger, is what I'm saying. Do they end up running a hobbled service there? I also wondered if they could buy back catalogs. Would that be something that would count? I know the whole point of the money, and they'd still get the money. I know the whole point of the money is to try to make it so that you can reinvest in production in those local regions. But could you buy, I don't know, a back catalog of BBC stuff that nobody's watching now and say, look, there's 30% European content. There you go, the Netherlands. You've got your European content, which is all old BBC stuff. I would be a big fan of that, by the way, because I want to watch Elizabeth R without having to subscribe to BritBox or buy a DVD because I hate physical media. The other thing I wonder is, could they just pull up stakes? Does Europe get no Apple TV Plus? And is Europe fine with that? And I go back to the question I was asking yesterday. What happens then when China does this, when India does this, when, other countries around the world or other regions around the world start doing this? I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. I'm just not sure that it's actually tenable. I'm not sure it's possible for Apple to do this or Netflix to do this or Amazon Prime Video. I mean, it's possible. They could always throw money at it. That's fine. They've all got enough money that they could make this happen. seems like a bit of a morass. Am I using that word correctly? I don't know. There's at least one guy who watches this show. I think there are a few. But I know Nate, who I mentioned earlier, is from over that way. He's from across the pond. If you live in not the US, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this whole thing. Nate, I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to anybody else who's dialing in, listening in, viewing from parts unknown to me anyway. I'd love to get your feedback on it. A couple of ways to do that. You can leave a comment on this video. You can also email me. That would be great, actually. I would love an email on this. info@macoscan.com. INFO, info@macoscan.com. I got to say, a good selection of small European fare on Apple TV Plus would be wonderful. I would love to see that. Well, I would love to have the option to see that. I talked on this show, a week ago, I think, maybe two. I think it was last week, about me working in a movie theater, which I used to do. And I used to see tons of foreign language films. I used to scoff at movies with big explosions. Oh, I'd watch them. But, real cinema was people smoking and speaking languages I didn't understand. Now that movies cost 17, 18 bucks. First of all, those movies almost never actually get to the cinema. And then second, it costs 17 or 18 bucks. I'm not going to go for that. I need explosions and capes and all that stuff. So I would love to have this content available to me on Apple TV Plus right before I go over to Disney Plus and watch Iron Man 3 for the ninth time. That movie is underrated. Which is a funny thing to say about an MCU movie. Coming up in just a moment, I want to talk a little bit about contact tracing. Before I do that, though, I want to remind you about another show that I do. I don't think I bought a single Christmas present yet, which is starting to get troubling because Christmas, I believe, is 2 weeks away. 2 weeks from tomorrow. Not to freak you out, but I believe it is. This episode of the checklist this week that I did by Secure Mac, we were talking about buying Internet of Things because probably we're not going to be able to go out and check stuff out. Probably we're going to be buying a lot of stuff online. A lot of places are saying if you want your stuff to get there by Christmas, you have to have it ordered by the 11th of December, which is tomorrow. And so we might be, hitting the buy button without really thinking about what we're buying or really considering the security and privacy implications. So on this week's edition of the checklist, we had a checklist, 7 tips when buying Internet of Things that you want to check out before you actually hit that buy button. And then there's also a scary story about how a lot of the Internet of Things that we have are completely. So check that out. The show is called The Checklist. It is brought to you by Secure Mac. A couple of different ways to find that. Pretty much you can go any place that has podcasts and search for it. And if you have a podcast provider that you use that does not have the checklist by Secure Mac, please email me and let me know because I'm supposed to make sure it's on all of them. So info@macoscan. Or you can go to the website, securemac.com/checklist. It's got notes there. You can listen to it right there. You can check out the other 200 plus shows that we have there. securemac.com/checklist. And happy holidays. Ready or not, here they come. Let's talk really quickly about contact tracing. So what's the best way to say this? Well, to just say it. I live in California. I haven't lived in Buffalo for a very long time. Moved to California a couple of years ago. And I think I've mentioned that on this show. I don't know. I've sort of been quiet about, stuff in my personal life because I have been. It's changed over the past few years. And that's all I want to say about that. Here's what I will say, though. Living in California, you might have noticed that I've gotten a tiny bit, I think shirty is the word. I've gotten a tiny bit snipey, maybe would be a word, about the fact that it has taken California months and months and months to turn on the Apple Google contact tracing API. This was developed, Apple and Google, I think. We went into lockdown for COVID-19 in the middle of March. I believe it was in April that Apple and Google said, we're going to work on a contact tracing solution. They said that hopefully it's going to be out in a couple of months. Then they got it out in like a month and a half. Came out in May, I think. And California, which little known fact, home to Apple and Google, California took until today to turn on the contact tracing API. I had thought that it was actually on a couple of weeks ago because if you go into iOS 14.2 or maybe even earlier, there's an exposure notification thing that you can turn on. You have to read 3 screens in to find out that that was being run by, it was just being run at some of the University of California campuses. It wasn't actually for everybody. So everybody could turn it on, which I assume helped them see how things were going and how it was working, but it actually wasn't working for you. You couldn't report COVID-19 diagnosis, nor would you see whether you were near somebody who had COVID-19. It was a listener to this show. I think it might have been Hank who pointed that out to me. And I'm not sure. I apologize if it was somebody else. I believe it was Hank. So anyway, earlier this week, the governor of California, Governor Gavin Newsom, said, we're going to turn that on Thursday. Notify CA is going to be available to everybody on Thursday. I assume that that is an app that you can download, but because Apple has built the contact tracing thing into iOS, having that notification turned on means now it's working for me, theoretically. Actually went and dug in a little bit further, and where Hank had pointed out to me that it said this is just for, certain UC campuses, it's now working for everybody. It actually says now, here's this thing, and you'll get the stuff and whatever. And I don't want it anymore. It was easy to complain about the fact that I didn't have it before, right? But going to the grocery store, and listen, I'm going to use it. It's on. I'm going to use it. But before now, going to the grocery store meant, getting your mask, taking your hand sanitizer, wiping down the cart. Don't touch everything. Try not to lick the stuff that you used to lick when you went to the grocery store, please. It meant being careful. And then you'd come home and be like, well, I think I was careful, right? Now my phone's going to tell me if I ran into somebody, not literally ran into somebody because, social distancing, but now my phone is going to tell me whether there was somebody there. And I focus on the grocery store because that is the only place that I go. That and occasionally Target, but that's usually if I don't want to go to the grocery store because they have groceries there, right? I mean, my point is I'm going nowhere except for the occasional store. And now, like David Bowie's Black Star, that's going to be a thing in your pocket. I'm glad I have it. I'm going to use it. I don't want it. I don't think any of us do. I mean, that's the thing. It's, it's a constant reminder of your mortality in your pocket. But you can play games on it, so that's cool. Not the contact tracing thing, but, your phone. You can take pictures. You can be told whether or not you've been in contact with somebody who, potentially could kill you. And you can play Upspell. So that's great. That's a happy way to end the show, isn't it? Play Upspell. There's the happy way to end the show. It's a great game. I lose tons of time with that. Anyway, I'm trying to bring it around to something happy because I know I just did the whole Black Star thing. So never mind. Forget I said that. Just, tell you what you do. Stop after the thing about the checklist. Might be a tiny bit late for that. As I said at the top of the show, this is a thing that we do every Monday through Friday afternoon, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places. Consult your local listings. Lots of people talking in the chat room right now. I'm going to go by and talk to them in a moment, just like I do after every show. Honestly, one of my favorite parts of my day is talking to everybody in the chat room, which means you could be part of my favorite part of the day. Just come by and join us live sometime. We might have cake. The cake is a lie. Let's see. We got macOS Ken wrapping up the week tomorrow. Chuck Joyner also wraps up the week on In a Few Minutes tomorrow, spinning the wheel of stuff. It's his first time playing that game. You don't want to miss that. Yeah. macOS Ken in a few minutes. macOS Ken live tomorrow afternoon. And I'll talk to you soon. Hey, everybody. Again, I'm sorry. It's weird, right? What did I say on macOS Ken the other day? macOS Ken live, recorded live before a socially distanced audience. That's true. Oh, man. Okay. I have to go back up to the top. But Andrew, yeah, that's absolutely right. I really, honestly, I shouldn't worry about using the contact tracing app because, right, people have to turn it on because apparently a lot of people think turning that on is what's going to make it possible for them to track you. No, it's your smartphone that makes it possible for them to track you. That and everything else that we use. And then of course, right, you have to turn it on, and then you have to get tested if you're feel like you might be tested, and you have to report it. There are so many steps to this thing, not whatever. But hopefully, it works like a charm. Actually, a charm would be great right now, wouldn't it? Something you can just like. I've changed my mind. Let's go back to 2017 or 2018. Heck, 2019 wasn't that bad. I was a big fan of February of this year, actually. All right, going back up to the top. Roger says 30% is what consignment shops charge. It covers display space, transaction handling, and the friendly guy who sells my stuff for me. I do not understand why people think 30% is too high. Well, we're not. You actually sounds like you're talking about charges, Roger. I could be wrong. I agree with you on the 30%. As far as the 30% content, that's a different thing because they're going global. Eugene says there's something about the devalued nature of digital goods that doesn't fit in the mindset of physical goods. I'm loving this. You guys are having a different conversation, which I don't disagree. Here's what's weird though. Why is it that like when CDs had to be moved by truck and had to be packaged and there was all the plastic and there was the shipping and all that stuff, they cost $11.99. And then when they went digital, they cost what? $11.99. How does that work? Roll call. I see John did the roll call. No trouble is Nate, not Laura. Sorry I missed the roll call earlier, John. Thank you very much for doing it. I appreciate it. This channel is not about Max. Max who? Hi, Leah. Leah's waving like 25 minutes ago. Yeah, Andrew. Okay, so Andrew said he actually enabled the Notify CA app today for exposure notifications. Don't stand. There are people that I've come into contact with since this whole thing began. There was a woman. I've changed grocery stores because the grocery store that I was going to was just ghastly. The people who turned up there for some reason wanted to like flout like all of the rules and all the laws. And I can have a little bit of a temper, but I usually keep it to myself. It's funny, you put a mask on me and then you be mean to me. Yeah, my temper comes out because nobody can see what I'm saying. There are a couple of people, honestly, that I wonder about. There were people who literally got in my face because they didn't like the way I was reacting to their not wearing a mask, or they didn't like the way that I was reacting to their lack of personal space. And I've honestly wondered, I wonder how they're doing. And I wish them no ill. I honestly wonder how they're doing. There was one guy in particular who was reveling in getting in people's faces. He would get about that far from somebody's face and yell at them. I hope he's okay. I also think about that kid. You remember that kid that we all saw on the news? The one who went to spring break in Florida? Said, well, if I'm going to get COVID, I'm going to get COVID. Somebody should have taken his number because I'm really curious how he's doing. Brenston Pickle. I actually know what that is. I don't like it, but I actually know what that is. Sorry. Well, good luck with your surgery, Matthew. I'm sorry. Matthew says, hey, something kind of tech related. I guess there's a robot doing my gallbladder surgery Monday. Although I'm going to be put under, I would love to watch it. Maybe they'll make a tape of it for me. If you go to YouTube, I'll bet you can actually find videotape of it. And I say go to YouTube. I also say videotape. You're on YouTube right now, so you can probably find it. Or is it just that you want to see it operating on you? Did you hear about Hyundai buying Boston Dynamics? Those scary dogs, those scary robot dogs. Yeah, that's also they're not going to be the one doing the surgery on you though. Boy, that'd be creepy, wouldn't it? Headless robot dog taking out your gallbladder. Good luck. Good luck, Matthew, with your surgery. I'm sure it's going to be fine. That's me being cool. Andrew says he thinks the 30% rule is going to backfire on the EU. He doesn't see streaming services complying. I wonder if they can find a way around it. Like I said, maybe buy a back catalog or something like that. If you're talking strictly about new production, and I think Apple would not like to buy a back catalog. Then again, we kind of didn't they buy Israel? Obviously, is not Europe, but didn't they buy not Tehran? But wasn't there another show that they bought that was already produced for the Israeli audience? Seems like there might be something they could pick up there. Problem is, once they know that Apple's buying and why they're buying, then anybody who's got the rights to whatever back catalog they have is going to suddenly shoot that straight up. Andrew also says the foreign films on Netflix have not been that impressive. Subtitles have been okay, but stories have been meh. Yeah. Can't count Ted Lasso. I think I was saying that, Frank. I can't remember if I said that while we were talking or not. I was thinking about it, though. Yeah, it's an American production company, I suppose. Even though they're filming in England, they got to be hiring a bunch of English production assistants and crew and all that stuff. There are only 2 Americans, as far as I know, in the cast. I say Apple should try it. I say Apple should say, what are you talking about? We got 2 shows. We got Trying. We tried that. And I'm Ted Lasso. That's my imitation of Roy's imitation of Ted Lasso. I kind of need you to diagram that sentence, Chuck. Chuck says, so the EU is going to force services to distribute content that may or may not be in short supply, driving up the demand for existing content to meet the requirements, but that maybe nobody wants. Yeah, I might need you to draw me an illustration of what you're saying. Bill says Canada has Canadian content rules for broadcasters. I could see this rule coming here. It's come up before. Where are you, Bill? You say here. I don't know where here is. Can you imagine? Man, well, I feel like an ugly, ugly American. As Portugal the man says, I feel so American. Can you imagine? See, we have no idea. Americans look at this and go, well, that's just stupid. If it was any good, people would be watching it. But we produce all the movies. Not all the movies, but, here, flash forward 50 years when every movie stars, somebody from China and has been dubbed into English. and deals with stuff that's not even part of our iconography right now, would you feel differently? I don't know. I get it, but then again, I would honestly like to see more small films subsidized here in the States. As we deal with the dreaded disease, as we deal with the economic uncertainty, I would like to see another WPA, and I would like for that to yield art. I mean, among many, many, many other things, I would like to for it to yield, hey, maybe we could finally do Infrastructure Week sometime in the next 8 years. One of those things I would like to see is filmmakers and radio producers and theater and all of it. Yeah, theater once we're actually able to go back to the theater. Matthew says the whole thing sounds like a shakedown. Yeah, that's fair too. Yeah, I'm with you. Starfleet Universe on call says, why would Apple support creation of work that they only have control over for 1 year? Yeah, that I think Italy is reaching a bit. I mean, I do want eh, yeah, I definitely want the creators to be fairly compensated. That seems like a bit much. I don't think you can't just take the movie that you made for 20th Century Fox over to, somebody else a year later and give them the rights to it. You certainly can't sell the rights to it. Of course, then what stinks is 20th Century Fox can. I mean, they've sold themselves to Disney, and now it's Disney's to do with, and which gets a little hinky as well. I don't know if you heard about what's happening with Alan Dean Foster, science fiction writer, has been writing Star Wars novels. I want to say since '78, off and on. He wrote Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which I remember from when I was a kid. It was a grown-up book, so I didn't read it because I was like 8. But it was actually on the book rack at Don CB, which was the local grocery store that hasn't existed for decades and decades. And yeah, so Disney bought the rights to the Star Wars stuff, and they said, yeah, the past contracts don't apply to us anymore. So they're still making money off of Alan Dean Foster's stuff, and he's got plenty of other books since that one, which they're still happy to sell and have not been paying him. So studios can go and do that. Creators should get something more out of it, but no, I can't see saying 1 year. I mean, that's a huge investment. That again, they're not going to be able to look at receipts at the end of it and say, "Hey, we made back that money." Except, of course, Apple actually can look at the receipt. We'll never know, and the creator would never know either. That's so funny. Nate says he only heard about this. I'm wondering if I'm living like in a time warp or something because I remember this story from like a month or two ago, I think. There's also a story tomorrow on macOS Ken that the improved maps for Canada have gone live, which I thought we did that story 2 weeks ago. I may have become unstuck in time, guys and gals. Right, I'm skipping down. John says he's also purchased no presents. Just heard tonight is the first full night of Hanukkah in light of 2020. Set one dumpster on fire each night for the next 8 nights. That's cute. I didn't realize it was. I thought Hanukkah had already happened. I'm gonna go listen to. I'm not Jewish, but I have Hanukkah music that I love. Bare Naked Ladies did a few songs I think are fantastic. So thank you for reminding me. I'm gonna go listen to those. Do. Frank used to finish by October. He hates the throng when Christmas shopping. Well, good news, there won't be one. Sorry, that's awful. I love going Christmas shopping in the thick of it, in the heart of it. I love going to the mall and seeing the Santa and seeing the decorations. And I feel certain the decorations are still there. And I love the idea. This I thought would be a funny thing to do, just like as a short film, like a year or two from now. Still have Santa in the mall, but there's the 6 feet thing, and there's like a rope around Santa, and nobody gets to sit on his lap, but kids have to yell at him from 6 feet away what they want. He yells back at them, and the kid turns around and takes his picture. with Santa, except Santa looks really small because he's 6 feet behind him. Do the whole thing in portrait mode so the kid's in focus, and then there's just this like blurry, shady Santa in the background. If anybody wants to make that movie, I want 30% and the rights to sell it to somebody else 6 months later. And now we're back to the bottom where we were talking about whether or not anybody's going to actually report that they have COVID-19 to notify CA. Whoops. There we go. That's sort of terrible. I'm not going to say that. Yeah. Starfleet Universe. It sucks. I love going to the local mall and just, window shop. I used to love that when I lived in California, when I lived in San Francisco. The Macy's would have the Macy's downtown. I think it was Macy's. No, it was a store near there. Anyway, one of the stores downtown, it was the Macy's, would have these like wonderful like holiday living room displays filled with puppies or filled with kittens. And of course, they took them, someplace else at night after the store closed. But I can't remember if they were up for adoption or if it was just raising awareness of the local SPCA, or the local Humane Association. I used to love that. And then wander over to the Apple store and see the big garish iPad display. Yeah, fun times. San Francisco over decorates itself for Christmas. It's gorgeous because it's a beautiful city. And you throw in Christmas lights, a little fog, you're halfway to a made for Europe Netflix movie. Yeah, I don't know that either, John. John says he doesn't know how they figure out when Hanukkah is. I don't know how they figure out when Easter is. I finally picked up on the fact, though, that Christmas is December 25th every year, and Thanksgiving, once again, and it seems almost impossible, once again was on a Thursday this year. How does that keep happening? And election is the first Tuesday, or is the Tuesday after the first Monday of every November. That one I actually know about, but whatever. John thinks the moon is involved. I think the moon's involved in everything, John. I suspect the moon of much. Right. See, this is so much fun. We finished the show like 20 minutes ago, and here we still are. But I got a motor. I got to bounce. I got to try out Notify CA. Anyway, what about cheese, Frank? All right, I got to go. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll wrap up the week tomorrow. Yeah. If nobody has told you that they appreciate you today, that's happening right now. Thank you for being here. I can't tell you how much it means and how much I appreciate it. And now I got to go because otherwise I'll just keep saying nice things to you. Take care.